It's time for the Jim and Terry Show.
As soon as I took the introduction, you flipped your camera upside down and I'm backwards. I'm disappearing. I think I'm back in the corner again. The Jim and Terry Show, coming to you in the most stupid way possible. I don't know how else to segue. If you got a better segue, lead into it. You got anything?
No, I like it.
Okay. Well, we were talking in our previous podcast. It was really, the whole podcast was more about things spiritual from the Jim point of view of life and religious belief. This one is simply, we're going to start off with this 1970s article by an Italian economist who wrote an article. Now, I tried to find out where it was published. I only found reference to it in a Wikipedia site, so I've got to do some digging. But the guy's name is Cipolla, Cipolla, and it's 5 fundamental laws of stupidity. And if you want, we can go through them one at a time. I don't know if you've got any reference on your screen. I've got them here in front of me, so I can just read them and we can talk about them as we go.
Sure.
All right. Remember, this is an economic analysis. So we're trying to measure and define stupidity in terms of selfishness versus community, and self-harm and community harm. Those are the sort of the polarities that we're talking about as we move. And this is a sliding continuum. And so we measure stupidity as the one who does damage and harms himself. And this is, again, an economic framework. So you'd make choices in your life that do not do things very well for yourself. That would fall under, that would be a stupid choice. If I'm choosing to give something up in the detriment of my life, my family, myself, that is a definition of acting stupidly.
Yeah, what I got out of it, I liked how it wound down to the thing that came to my mind anyways, is someone being stupid messes up things, and with no profit to whoever they screw up, and no profit to them.
Yes.
They even put them more dangerous than a bandit who wants to screw you over and get profit out of it.
Intentionally.
They even put the stupid person actually below that. Now, I'm not saying they're stupid, but I got to admit what came to my mind was a drug addict. They don't seem to help anybody ever in life, and all they do messes up everybody else's life, and they benefit nothing from it. So that
I would be reluctant to talk about drug addiction or addiction of any sort, because that borders on mental illness, which is not stupidity and doesn't figure into this very easily. I see where you're going with the outcomes of that action, but I'm not sure that fits the best for this thing. But let's go back. Let's go back through the whole thing and go back to your key points. The first point of the 5 laws.
Oh, let me defend myself. Everybody's going to think I'm horrible. And then we'll go back to the 5. That's just what came to my mind.
This is the Jim and Terry Show for our ones and twos. Go ahead, Jim.
That just came to my mind because I've seen the results of people who are in that, the way their families suffer, the way everybody suffers, including themselves, until they get straightened out.
Yeah.
But that came to my mind as an example of nobody benefiting.
Actually, pointing that out is one of the criticisms of this theory. So, fair point to you. Things don't always fit squarely into a matrix. And Matrix, Keanu Reeves, here we go. Yes, it's all zeros and ones. You only have a choice. It's only binary. It's either male or female. No, life is very complex, and yeah, it gets messy sometimes. But that example of drug addiction doesn't fit his model. Yeah. So we're trying to understand what he's thinking. All right, first point he says in his 5 laws of stupidity. Number 1, always and inevitably. I like those because those are absolute. Always, without any variation. Everyone underestimates the quantity of stupid individuals in circulation at any point in any time, in any culture. So there's no
Yeah.
cultural specialty. Stupidity does not belong to North American culture. It doesn't belong to European culture or East Asian. It doesn't belong to North or South America. It doesn't belong to any culture, no geographic, no intellectual markers. There's no monetary markers. Stupid people are everywhere. And we have to understand what he means by that in order to understand what he's saying. But we underestimate. That's the key word. Now, if I was to do a political analysis and say, who voted for Trump? I would sort of tend to say, you're right. I underestimated who would do this. Okay, so that's a point number one. Underestimate the number of people who make decisions. And again, you said it, self-harm and harm for others. So if it's a negative and a negative, you're at the bottom of the pecking order. You're making decisions that are not best. So that's number one, and there's a lot more of them than we think. Number two, the probability that a certain person will be stupid is independent of any other characteristic. You can be honest and stupid. You can be smart and stupid. You can be rich and stupid. You can be whatever, a male, a female, it doesn't matter. Gender, there's no limit to who could be stupid.
Yeah. Interesting it was, for sure.
Well,
Why am I talking like Yoda? I don't know.
I like Yoda. Number three, a stupid person is a person who causes loss to others or to a group of other people while himself deriving nothing.
Yeah, that was my point.
That's your point, and that's a third law of this. And the fourth one is non-stupid people always underestimate the damaging power of stupid individuals.
Yeah.
I would say that most of this has a political application given our current context.
You can't get him out of your head.
Number five, it's not just Trump. It's a model for understanding most political decision making. If you damage other people, then you are on the stupid side of things. If you damage yourself, in other words, Republicans who won't vote for health care or extending Medicaid and Medicare, or you're stripping it out, or you're taking someone's pension, you are acting stupidly because you are harming or creating a loss for others. So
Yeah.
I like that analysis. It's an economic one. And finally, you get this, and this is the takeaway. If any of our ones and twos want to contribute to this discussion, the fifth law is a stupid person is the most dangerous type of person.
Yeah. I'm wondering where you would peg Trump, because I guess he goes over into he goes over into the bandit category, but then some of the things he does is self-destruction as well. So I guess he borders those two. I don't know, but I guess once you're in the stupid category, it's kind of hard to get out of that.
I guess you waffle between stupid and bandit. And bandit is the one who intentionally sets out to create loss for others for himself to gain. Yes, you're right. Some people are bandits, but the stupid person is the one who votes for a bandit.
Okay.
That's an interesting framework to understand. And again, this is a matrix examination. So there's a sliding scale of self and others, and harm to self and harm to others. And it goes up and down, left and right, depending on where you make your decisions and how you make those decisions. Remember, my economic and social political platform is a tide floats all boats.
Yeah.
And so I look on decisions that are economic and political and have social implications, saying, is it good for more people than it harms? That's one of the decisions you have to weigh in order to make a social policy. You're going to pass a law. Who does it affect? Does it affect more people positively or more people adversely? It's really,
good way of looking at it.
It's kind of who was it who had this plus and minus? I think it was Thomas Hobbes who argued that in terms of philosophy, that you measure the goodness of an act by the outcomes, and it's simply quantitative. You add them all up. Does this decision have more good, or that decision have more good? Simple addition.
Yeah.
We don't want to
No,
get
I
into
love it.
multiplication because it starts to get complicated. So it's add the amount of good, quantitative analysis. Anyway, that was one of the ones that we thought was an interesting one. So if you got to look it up, you can look up this fellow. I thought I had his whole name somewhere, but it's called The 5 Laws of Stupidity. It was an article published in the 1970s by an Italian economic theorist taking a look at whether we make the best decisions we can and how many people are involved in subverting goodness. I like that way of looking at it, subverting goodness. In other words, goodness is out there. We can make it happen. We can allow the tide to float everybody in social, political, economic policies, or we can subvert goodness.
Yeah, just remember some of the people on that boat are stupid.
Yeah, it sounds so malicious when you say it with some acerbic or venomous tone in your voice. Yeah, I think in Italian it must be a different word, or is it just stupido?
Stupido. No, I'm not wearing a stupidos, you stupido. You're stupidos for thinking my
goodness.
is a speedo.
Okay, that was the 5 Laws of Stupidity for our ones and twos, and who can look it up. Cipolla, Cipolla.
Yeah, I liked it.
Check it out.
Yeah.
All right, I wanted to tell you about somebody who I found interesting because of the title of the book they were writing. Somebody published a new book, and I sent you a link to show you what the book is, and it was actually a tweet, because what else do people do in social media? You make a video of yourself talking about your latest book. The name of the person is Kayleigh McEnany, who you may recall being the good Christian spokesperson for the Trump administration, with her nice little cross on a chain that she always had, daintily suspended from her delicate neck. And of course, she's blonde and good looking, because that's who Trump hires, blonde and good looking. Don't worry, I knew a principal whose hiring practices were very similar to Trump's, and it was so obvious and blatant. But here's her book. It's called Serenity in the Storm, Living Through Chaos by Leaning on Christ. And that's from Kayleigh McEnany, one of the most, I would call her, offensive Christians I've ever encountered on television.
Yeah, well, I didn't encounter her as much as you, but I do recognize she was beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah,
I found it an oxymoron. She created the chaos.
Yeah, I don't know how people justify blatantly lying. I don't know if that personality is that person, the type that if they believe it, then it's right. Or I don't know what personality that clicks into. She's writing books because she's going to make a lot of money.
Yes.
That's why they're all doing it.
Yes. Even the critics.
Pence wrote a book, right?
Oh, Pence! I have no use for anything that he's going to say at all. And again, these are two: Kayleigh McEnany, Mike Pence. Who's the governor of Arkansas? She was Trump's spokesperson from the White House. Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's now governor.
Maybe their Christianity is why they didn't stick around very long, Terry, to tell you the truth.
Maybe they're not Christians.
Well, maybe that, but maybe the reason they ended up leaving the job is they realized I'm going to have to lie. Or maybe they're Christians that don't read the book. I mean, if you want to worry about lying I'm really afraid about, because that's one of the things listed in the Revelation about the new, and we're not going to get spiritual, but lying, God hates lying. And as you know, Jesus referred to himself as the truth. And so God does not like those who love a lie. So we
got a fundamental problem then. Fundamental being the ironic word, because fundamental evangelicals in the United States who are Trump supporters and supporting a known liar, provable liar, is a problem. And Kayleigh McEnany writing a book about serenity in the storm, surviving chaos. Well, she created the chaos by lying from the podium in the White House.
Well, maybe, I don't know. I've never read her book, and I doubt it. But maybe she says that in there. I had to get out of this job. I don't know.
No, I'd say that self-awareness is sorely lacking in these things. Consider the sources, one of the principles I use when I evaluate things. I always look at who's writing and what is it about them that makes this worthwhile reading or not reading. And so the name Kayleigh McEnany for me is going down with a lot of other names in infamy, not in the nice way, not in the way of, standing up for what you say is a Christ-like projection of self. It is something other than that. So
well, we've talked in the past, and I don't want to beat this cow to death, but we've talked in the past where I told you in a lot of cases, especially within mega churches, how many people think that being a Christian leads to wealth and fortune, forgetting the very person they're supposed to be following who didn't have a place to lay his head.
Right. You have that prosperity gospel in your sights often, and I do too, because it's inconsistent.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that guy that owns the big ranch and that big Texas church may not believe in Christ at all. At all. He just knows that he's got a network of people he can deal with that's going to help him. I knew someone who was a pastor of a church down there. I never really talked to him about it personally, but I talked to someone who had talked to him. And basically they were saying that in the South, if you want to do business, you best belong to a church.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's not coming to the gospel, Terry, that's not accepting Christ as your savior. That's a business decision, and that's the problem. So I don't know where Kayleigh's mind's at. I have no idea.
Well, you
But
can't
she
serve
may
God
not
and
really
mammon.
be a follower. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you're supposed to be able to judge people by the fruit of their labor. And if your labor is publishing a book that is ostensibly a conflict with Christian values, I'd say there's something wrong with that picture. So
Yeah,
leave
and
the
there
judging
may
to
be,
God.
I don't know her, so yeah. Remember about judging? Remember that?
Yeah. Except we just use the verse that says, by their fruit you shall know them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, and you said you judge all things. Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Well,
All right. How about,
okay, go on.
oh,
Because we already had a spiritual show, so I'm not going to.
okay. How about Iran continuing to execute male protesters? I haven't heard of a female execution since the woman who started the whole hijab protest died in police custody. But this is the second male protester execution.
Well, they don't care, do they? They'll just kill people to make their point. It would be wise for them not to kill any more women, because it started such a kerfuffle. I don't think it's a moral thing at all. I think we got to stop these people, and we'll do anything immoral to stop the citizens from having their freedom.
So freedom comes up again, and for those of us in Canada who thought we knew what freedom was and we had it taken away from us, go to Iran and witness some of the stuff. You can't watch it on CBC or mainstream media because you don't believe they're telling you the truth. Where do you get the information then?
Well, it's like China as well. I mean, I don't know if you sent it to me, but I've read a thing about China, what you can and can't do in China.
Yes.
And then you got what you can't do. I mean, in North Korea, these are people that have zero freedom. The women can't wear makeup or jewelry. The hair has to be short. They have to serve in the army, of course. They have to do all kinds of things. Total lack of freedom, and starve to death as they're doing it. So
unbelievable.
I'm glad I live in Canada under this regime.
Yes, it's
quite bloody good.
Yeah, it's a very compassionate regime we have here under totalitarian Trudeau, using that phrase sarcastically. So global things happening. How about this one? I think I sent it to you that Sweden, is it Sweden or Norway's done whatever it takes to get into NATO?
Yeah.
So is it a done deal, or is Hungary under the other dictator, Viktor Orban, is he still putting up blockades to get Sweden and Norway in?
Oh, he's probably putting up. I haven't paid that much attention to it. The main thing I want to push is for the critics of NATO, etc. And I'm sure they've done things wrong. Why wouldn't they? They're human. So they're an organization. But I want to point out that people want to be in NATO. And one of the main reasons they want to be in NATO because they don't want the repressive life of Russia.
Yeah.
And you got to remember that. And I know there's people who actually support Russia. Go in, crush Ukraine. I don't get it. I only understand they're getting information scattered and only what they want to hear. But if you look around in the midst of that country and its area, of the number of countries that don't want to be a part of Russia, just think about it. All you got to do is use your brain the slightest little bit. Those countries aren't supporting Russia. But, they're swooping to come to the West because the West way of life is better. They don't just take over countries. They've screwed up many times, and of course they have. And I hope they don't screw up Taiwan. I mean, if you say you're going to support them, bloody well support them. We should go over that too. Did you see the
go ahead.
War?
Go ahead. We got a few minutes. Go ahead.
Did you see the outcome about what would happen if there was a conflict, if war broke out between China and Taiwan?
No.
Did you read that?
Is this a war game scenario?
This is a war game scenario that they came to the conclusion China cannot win it. But, the loss. The United States, I think, 2 aircraft carriers and at least anywhere from 10 to 20 ships and dozens upon dozens of airplanes, maybe hundreds of jets. Remember, there's lives on these things, right? Like an aircraft carrier has 48,000 people on it. So to lose them is devastating. And China would try to do an amphibious landing.
Yes.
And would lose 96% of its Navy in the conflict, 200 to 300 jets or something like that. And of course, the human loss is uncountable.
Stunning.
Yeah. But that only works if Taiwan fights back. It all falls apart. Like in Afghanistan, for instance, when the soldiers really weren't fighting. Yeah. They just let Americans do it all. Taiwan, I think, is a little different. They're training, and I think they want their country. Yep. In Afghanistan, they were just, it's better life if you're with the Americans. That's fine. As soon as they left, they dropped their guns. They didn't.
But the Americans were paying money in Afghanistan.
Yeah. And Russia tried to take Afghanistan. You can't take the country. If the men aren't going to fight for their own country, you're done.
Yep.
But that war case scenario, and it's only a scenario, you're right, China may totally take over. But these evaluated that it's unwinnable war.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be and not to mention the other countries like Canada and Germany and what their losses would be if they're in support of that war. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure they added up all that stuff. Oh God, I hope war don't break out. That's just disastrous. Not Taiwan. To mention the first phase. I'm sorry, one more thing. The first phase would be just a barrage of missiles coming from China, just annihilating Taiwan. That's the first phase.
That somebody sits there and programs this stuff into some kind of simulation is you hope they know their algorithms.
Oh yeah, I mean, at the same time an earthquake hits and everything changes. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, it's unbelievable that we're even talking about this stuff. Just as it's unbelievable to me that some people are still thinking a nuclear option in Ukraine is viable. There's no way. No way. So there's some stuff out there that's floating around the internet that I'm not sure about. But Taiwan is a scary one for me. I don't know, why can't you just let people be?
Yeah. Well,
isn't a prosperous Taiwan a healthy trading partner and contributing to global wealth and labor?
Oh, it definitely is. Maybe not China, but it could. You know what I mean? If instead of wanting to conquer it, you just trade with them.
Yes. And it's the same as North Korea and South Korea. Do the same thing. Why can't you just agree to disagree and trade?
Yeah. And then, as you know, North Korea's people are starving to death, and South Korea looks like one of the most prosperous countries in the world.
Yes.
There's a border separating those two.
That's why you control the media. whether you're China, Russia, or North Korea, you control the media so that
Yeah.
people don't see and don't get out to spread the
Yeah.
propaganda.
But there's another country that's always been like amazement to me, and that is like the Dominican Republic and Haiti. There, Haiti is just going to hell in a handbasket, and the Dominican Republic
Is the other
prospering like
side.
crazy.
Yeah,
There's a
so how
border
is that
between those two countries. That's it. An
how is that
unseeable.
possible?
Yeah, it's amazing to me. And Haiti, you wouldn't want to go there. It's just a
No,
hellhole.
so there's something historical that led to those two, and I'd like to investigate that. That's a good. Yeah, I'm curious about that.
I did a thing way back when I used to do a missionary thing at the church. I did a talk on Haiti, and one of the things back there, and I'm not saying this is the root of all evil, but my talk was that Haiti embraced voodooism and all kinds of spit. They're spiritually freaked right out. Those people, you know what I mean? They're Christian and they're voodoo. They're anything. They can't seem to get a relaxed faith, and so I wondered if that's part of it, where there's no peace within their own souls. I don't know,
Mhm.
but they're a mixture of all faiths, all in the same person. You know what I mean? Like voodoo or devil worship or whatever you want to call it, and Christianity, all in the same, same human being. I don't know how that. I don't know how that can't be a conflict.
Yeah, you would think that that would be what we would call cognitive dissonance, where you're embracing things that are the opposites. You can't rationalize it. At least
Yeah,
the healthy mind cannot rationalize these things.
that's
The
right.
unhealthy mind could probably find ways, and we get into borderline personality disorders and multiple personality ideas. Yeah, it gets to be pretty messy, but why
And it might
why
extend.
arbitrary political line drawn down the middle
Yeah.
means prosperity or not is surprising.
And it might have something to do with colonialism or something. I don't know. I'm not saying it doesn't.
Yes.
My talk was just on the spiritual aspect of things. And when I did that talk, Haiti was way better off than it is now. Because I did
Yeah.
that probably 30 years ago.
Yeah. So things have changed and gotten worse, and I wonder why. My analysis does not tend to go to the spiritual very often. It goes to the economic and
Yeah.
educational things. So anyway, all right, I'll give you the final word. It seems to be the Jim Sampson day for going over things and putting a spiritual veneer over a lot of this stuff. So what would you like to say? Parting words from the Jim and Terry Show.
I'm sorry.
You cannot apologize for being you. That's you.
Yeah.
So no apologies to end off the podcast. Give us some words of encouragement or something, or an observation. What to look for this week?
This week, what to look for? Well, I'm really would like to see, and I don't think we're going to see it this week, but a static fire of all 30, or at least I know they're stacked. Starship is stacked. You asked the question. That's where my mind goes. It's stacked now. What are you going to do with it now that it's stacked? Because as you know, they're pushing the launch is probably not going to be till February, maybe the 1st of March, in that time period. But I'm still waiting for this mother of a ship to take off.
I watched the stacking, and
Yeah.
I don't know. This is just blowing my mind every time I see this thing. Stage 0, the whole thing, the tower, the pad that it's sitting on. They did the stress test on that. Did you see the last test on the clamps? The clamps to hold it down.
It passed, right?
Yes. Yeah, but
so they can stack it and fill it.
Yep.
And people may not be aware of it, and I know they're not, because I think they would be more interested in it. The fuel weight is 5,000 tons.
That's just the fuel.
5,000 tons.
And that's only stage 1? What about Starship?
Oh, I think it's Starship too. I think it's both of them combined.
Both of them.
I'm not sure though, but the bottom line is that's just a mountain of stuff there, And even the little ship on top is, how many stories would that be? 10? I don't know. Like, it's huge. And I wish someone would do a documentary, a proportional documentary, so you can see what we're looking at here. you know. And I really wish someone would do that, because all the shots don't. I take pictures and try to show people. I go, you see that little dot walking around the top?
That's a
That's a
person.
person.
I know the scale is enormous.
It's enormous, like like Star Trek, enormous. And people just, oh, well, what's it to do with me? I don't know. I just different things people like.
Remember, the goal is a colony on Mars. The goal is 1,000 starships to
Yes.
Mars. The goal is, I forget how many thousands of people have to be there and how many tons of material have to travel from Earth to Mars. The scale.
I think it's a million. Is it a million people or a million tons? I don't know. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And 1,000 starships?
Yeah.
This is something out of a Robert Heinlein science fiction book from the 1950s.
Like
When
an
you s-
armada.
An armada
of
in
starships.
space, yeah.
Yeah. Amazing to me. And I mean, one of the reasons I'm amazed, this isn't science fiction. This guy's building these things. You know what I mean? And they're there. There's like, if you just look at a video, you're going to find 5 starships there. You know what I mean? Not to mention they've been selected to land on the moon. So soon they're going to have to get that ship up and out there and see if it works. If they're going to meet the goals to land in 2024 or whatever they're planning on doing.
Do you think that's taking so long? This is just a final wrap-up idea, but do you think it's taking so long because of FAA regulations in Boca Chica, or because you think they might nail this thing on the first launch, and from there it's going to be gangbusters to go to the moon and then to Mars, and then the cadence will increase?
Yeah, I think it's both, to tell you the truth. I think since the FAA is dragging their heels a bit, or giving them like an unbelievable Bible thick of options they have to, or things they have to do before they can launch, I think SpaceX has just said, well, look, let's just perfect the sucker. Well, I mean, let's not waste the time. If we can get the sucker to do everything we want. And I do agree, if it's a success, and again, Musk's not so sure it's going to be a success, you know, but if that first one does everything they want it to do, it's going to take off like you wouldn't believe. And I think they're pretty confident, because I don't know any other country that would build 2 towers down in Florida. I mean, this is great cost. 2 towers in Florida. They got a tower here in Boca Chica. They may be building another tower. They're pretty confident. As soon as they landed that first Starship, came back and landed, it was like, we can do it. And we don't want to worry about the leg things, because that's a major problem. That's one of the reasons the other one tipped over. The leg, gave out. They're not planning on using legs on them. So
Okay, to switch tacks just a bit, Virgin Galactic launched from a plane in England.
yeah, and it did pretty good, but it failed.
I'm having trouble understanding it. It did pretty good, but it failed.
Well, it went into space.
Okay, so you mean
it
it dropped successfully from the Boeing 747 ship that carried it aloft to 40,000 feet or whatever it was. It successfully dropped it. The engines kicked in. It was going upward, tracked to hit orbit. And then what happened?
Something went nuts, and they couldn't deploy the satellites and all the rest of it, so it didn't work. I mean, the equivalent would be, if you want to balance it, Musk's launching pad is what he calls stage 0. If that craft blows up on that pad, the damage is unimaginable to the system, the whole system. That would be like that rocket blowing up under the 747.
Right, so that part of it was a success.
Yeah, so that's all Musk wants. Clear the tower, please. Just clear the tower, and that's what he wants. If not, he's already got 2 other ones being built down in Florida. So
he's confident of the whole process, the whole system, whether it's successful at Boca Chica or not.
Yeah, and as confident as I think as Virgin Galactic is with taking a rocket strapped to the wing of their plane and dropping it without losing the plane. So once you clear that tower, that'll open up just an unbelievable, because he can do many, many tests and just watch them fall into the ocean, right?
Mm-hmm.
He gets it right.
Mm-hmm.
So once you can clear the tower, I think you'll see a smile on his face. It's cleared the tower, very little damage, and
February launch, or are you betting on March now?
Well,
I'm going to say February.
I want it to be February.
Come on, I'll put a loonie on the table here. Put a loonie right there. It's going to go in March. I mean February.
You got it.
I'm saying the early date. All right, there you go. A loonie on a February launch for Starship. All right. Anything else? Final words? I know your thoughts are lofty. So lofty, they're in suborbital launch mode.
The final word is, maybe you should do the final word, because we just carried on for another 10 minutes.
I know we had to get SpaceX in there because there is some exciting stuff. So if to our ones and twos, if you're not excited about SpaceX, I'm not sure what it would take to light a fire of enthusiasm under anybody's posterior.
Well, and you don't really have to, there's many, here we go again, but there are many videos and podcasts, people making living doing podcasts on just SpaceX. So you can get, if you want to see it, there's all kinds of things about it. You can even go to a live, a Padre live shot all the time.
You're down on the Gulf Coast side of Mexico. It's not that far away to drop into Texas and take in Boca Chica and see this thing. Anyway, if I was going that far, I'd probably say, might be worth my while to take a divergent trip. Anyway, the Jim and Terry Show signing off. Stay well, stay healthy. Your holidays are coming up. So we will not be talking. Your holidays are next.
Oh, yeah, I'll be gone Thursday, the next Thursday, and the next Thursday, 3 Thursdays.
3 Thursdays. And then after that, I think I will have a house full during the coming visit from my family. So we'll have to see if we can Skype on your way back. And maybe that's 3 Thursdays. Okay, I'll put it on the calendar and we'll talk later.
I'm back February 3rd.
Right, that gives us maybe 2 weeks before. No, 3. Oh, okay, we got a whole bit. We'll get caught up on everything Jim Sampson later.
Yeah.
All right, stay well, be safe. Good luck on your vacation, and we'll talk to you upon your return. Or, of course, you can always Skype from your hotel, motel, from your where are you going to be? You're going to be panhandling. You're going to be selling CDs on the street corner outside your motel. You're going to be busking. You're going to be making money.
Yeah. I just want to stay out of jail.
Well, that's an admirable goal. All right, stay safe, stay legal.
And out of the cartel's hands.
Yes, don't want any of that stuff. All right, my friend, do take care.
Bye, Terry.
Bye-bye for now.